Hello everyone, Rich Hagon, Brian David-Marshall here with you for the Day 3 wrap. Pro Tour Born of the Gods is done and dusted. BDM, we thought it would be a Pro Tour of heroes and gods and monsters. Well, maybe it was some of those things. What it certainly was on Day 3 was epic.
It was absolutely amazing. We sat down, it was seven players who were playing in their first Pro Tour. One player who played in the last Modern Pro Tour, Li Shitian, playing, so he was the lone two-time Pro Tour competitor. But you know what? Even though these guys did not have experience at this level of competition, this was a seasoned, professional bunch of Magic players who had won Grand Prix, had qualified for the Magic Online Championship Series, and have been fighting it out for the chance to be the hero of Pro Tour Born of the Gods.
So we opened up with the two-time Pro Tour top 8 man, Li Shitian of Hong Kong. He was up against Anssi Alkio of Finland, with tons of other card game experience behind him. It was Alkio who took that one, and a lot of fun deck builders were a bit disappointed because of the great deck.
Absolutely. Li Shitian was playing the deck Blue Moon, which was undoubtedly the breakout deck of this tournament. There was a long list of 25, 26, maybe even 27 decks that were considered viable decks for Modern. This was not on that list. It was a nearly mono blue deck that was running main deck Blood Moons. And I know a lot of people in my local playgroup are already considering this deck for the upcoming Modern PTQs.
Yeah, it seemed like a ton of fun, and along the way, extremely good. So Alkio won that. He knocked out Li Shitian. Second quarterfinal saw Jacob Wilson, only 18, from Sacramento, living in Canada right now again. Chris Fennell was his opponent. Traditionally a limited specialist BDM.
Traditionally, but he's been working with TeamTCGplayer.com. Ended up with playing a Storm deck, slightly different from some of the Storm decks we saw through the Swiss this weekend. And it carried him into the top 8. He only had one loss in Modern. 2 in Limited, which is pretty unusual for Chris Fennell. But Jacob Wilson playing Melirapod, he's just played some magnificent Magic and managed to advance past Chris Fennell.
Yeah, Fennell felt he was a little unlucky with some of his draws, which is fair. He was playing a combo deck. Storm does that sometimes, just malfunctions.
I mean, the thing about a Storm deck is a lot of times you're going to go off because you're going to lose next turn. Yeah. And sometimes that might feel a little unlucky when it doesn't happen, but
sure. Wilson advances to the semi-finals. Well, then we had Sean McLaren, another Canadian. He was up against Tim Rivera. Someone like Alkio has a lot of other card game experience.
And Tim goes all the way back on the Pro Tour, though. Goes back to Pro Tour Dallas, 1996. In the junior division, where he played as a 15-year-old. He's now all grown up now. He's married, has some kids, but still is a very active gamer and has recently started, kicking some butt, taking out the frustrations of being a married father of 2 on the Pro Tour.
So both players were blue, white, red, but Rivera was trying to do twin.
He was playing blue, white, red twin, where Sean was playing just a more traditional blue, white, red control deck.
Yeah, kind of along the lines of Shahar Shenhar winning Worlds. Just lots of good stuff, some removal, some counter spells, some card draw, that kind of thing. And it was McLaren who advanced past Rivera there. And then that left an intriguing clash between Christian Seibold of Germany and Patrick Dickman, also of Germany. Why don't you tell us about the deck, Speedy?
Well, you got to talk about the deck designer, which was Patrick Dickman.
Okay, so obviously that's Patrick Dickman. Who was Christian Seibold's deck designer?
Patrick Dickman.
No, who was Christian Seibold's deck designer?
Third base. No, Patrick Dickman designed both decks. The two friends tested together for this event.
Yep.
Patrick Dickman, you may remember, was the winner of Grand Prix Antwerp. Played actually a blue-red twin deck that was very, very similar to Alkio's deck. In fact, Alkio used Dickman's list as a template to build his deck for this event.
So the provenance was for Dickman there.
Dickman, maybe one of the best twin players in the world. Been playing it relentlessly, loves the deck.
Yep.
Had built Tarmo Twin for this event, which so it was more of like a rug twin deck. It was red, blue, and green.
Yes.
He had green for Tarmogoyf and for Scavenging Ooze.
Right.
And this deck looked great, but he had a moment of doubt, a moment of weakness. He's like, maybe I won't play it. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe I'll play Affinity. I have this really good Affinity deck. No, I'm not going to play Affinity. Here, Christian, why don't you play my Affinity deck? I'll meet you in the quarterfinals of the Pro Tour.
Yeah. And then I'll make sure that I got the right deck and I'll beat you in the quarterfinals of the Pro Tour. So that's all right then.
Absolutely. Dickman went through to the semifinals over Christian Staybold.
So back we go. Ansi Alkio then, with the provenance of Dickman's original twin list. He goes up against Jacob Wilson with Malira Pod. And this time, Alkio, the Finn, gets eliminated. Wilson advances to the final. What about the other semi-BDM?
Well, you know what? This was Sean McLaren. We maybe even undersold his quarterfinal matchup because it was crazy. He used his sideboarded Threads of Disloyalty to steal a Wall of Omens.
That's a 0/4.
Yeah. That draws a card when it comes into play.
Sure.
That had been enchanted with Splinter Twin.
Right.
Which is, by the way, very unusual to see this happen.
Oh, yes.
So he stole that wall. And so now he owns a wall that can put a copy of the wall into play and draw a card whenever it happens. And he basically stole this card. Both players were playing had fairly light hands, empty boards. And he just said, okay, well, I'll steal your wall that lets you draw a card every turn. I'll draw a card every turn. And eventually he just had an amazing hand and crushed Tim under just ridiculous card advantage. In the semifinals, Sean McLaren faced off against Dickman, and then again that Threads of Disloyalty showed up again. One sideboard copy of Threads of Disloyalty, and he used it to steal a Scavenging Ooze that had been equipped with Sword of Feast and Famine.
Yeah.
Dickman did not have another creature to re-equip the sword to, so there was a little bit of a moment where they're like, okay, so wait, what happens when the creature with the sword hits me? If I control the sword, I get to untap my lands, but the creature did the damage, so I have to discard a card. And then when they settled it all out and dusted it all off, Patrick Dickman fell, and the Threads of Disloyalty just continued to be an all-star card for Sean McLaren, and he was through to the finals of Pro Tour Born of the Gods.
That's an all-Canadian finals
Absolutely.
of Pro Tour Born of the Gods. Well done to the Maple Leafers. Great job. Sean McLaren, Jacob Wilson. Would we have a winner BDM where a player who wasn't born when Magic was born,
right,
winning a PT?
Jacob Wilson, only 18. Certainly there are players who've won Pro Tours who are older than Magic, but not who were older than Magic at the time they won a Pro Tour. Jacob Wilson, just 18.
Younger than Magic.
Younger than Magic, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jacob Wilson would have been the first player to do that. But he faced off against Sean McLaren and his magical Threads of Disloyalty. And in the final game, Game 5, both players again kind of on, gasping as they've just kind of gone back and forth in the fifth and final game. And finally, Threads of Disloyalty steals Scavenging Ooze, which had just come down, removed some creatures, and gotten big. And that was what it took for Sean McLaren. And he was able to weave that single Threads of Disloyalty throughout the bracket and win Pro Tour Born of the Gods. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Sean McLaren is your champion. Modern is a format where you can play anything you want. Just be prepared to have it stolen by Threads of Disloyalty. Thanks so much for watching. It's been great to have you with us in your hundreds and hundreds of thousands throughout the weekend. We cannot do it without you. There would be no point in us doing it without you. For all the team here at Wizards of the Coast, I'm your host, Richard Hagen. What? Excuse me. Yes?
Before we go, there's one thing you and I have both been wanting to do all weekend.
Okay. Bye.